So today's a little weird for a couple of reasons. One, I'm sitting down. And the reason I'm sitting down is because I was sick a couple weeks ago and then I thought I got better, but now I'm sick again and dying. And you're going to hear me whine about it until I feel better because I don't do sick well, just at all. So I'm sorry if that annoys you. It's definitely a very much first world problem that I'm dealing with a chest cold, but I can't breathe and I'm not having fun with that. So I'm sitting, but one of the other reasons why I'm sitting is because this is kind of a heavy subject and it's going to take some time. It's very, very controversial, often discussed, usually misunderstood. And I think we should sit for this because I'm going to the tapes. I'm going to the receipts. We're going to do the things. And I'm going to tell you what all of those receipts and tapes and things are in just a minute. But before I do, hello, I am Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. How's it going, Sudsers? Welcome back to the channel. You are at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things, and you are here for day 77 of 365 days of soap, and today we are doing kind of a deep dive on some very controversial, things. Now, originally this video was meant to be a labeling guide, because labeling is very, very misunderstood. It's confusing. A lot of people have a lot of opinions about it, and 90% of the time, those opinions are bullshit when it comes to labeling within the United States. And I think also that might be one of the reasons why there are so many fights, because like people on forums, for some reason, I guess maybe it's like this American entitled thing or whatever, they don't understand that there's a whole world outside of the United States. And perhaps, just perhaps, somebody's making a comment based on rules, regulations, laws, bills in their country. Anyway, it was supposed to be about labeling, but then I realized when doing the labeling stuff and all of the deep dive in the research and talking to all of these different governmental agencies, like so many of them, it's been delightful. I wanted to do the labeling video. I realized that we actually, in order to understand labeling, we have to start with definitions. And so that's what we're doing today. We are talking about what makes a soap, what makes a cosmetic, what makes a drug, and what you need to do within all of that to be legally on the up and up, essentially. Because that's also a very confusing thing, and that's the reason why I decided to do this first. So I think this might end up being a multi-part series on this, because there are so many people who say on the interwebs, on the soap forums, on the whatever, things like, I mean, they will literally screenshot somebody else's company and their description of their product on their website and be like, oh no, they can't do this. It's against the rules. It's against the law. This is a cosmetic if they say that their soap can moisturize. Well, I mean, yeah, it is a cosmetic, But do you know what's required to market your product as moisturizing versus just cleansing, or the hoops you have to jump through for a cosmetic versus a soap? Because they didn't. They didn't, is the point. So I thought we should really go to there and try to make sense of all of that in some kind of way. This video might be a little bit long when it's all said and done, because brevity has never really been my strong suit. And I think that's also another reason why I'm going to try to split this up into a couple parts and just tackle this kind of piece by piece, because there's a lot, as you would expect, because these are bills, these are laws, this is the government. There's a lot involved. Me personally, I love reading bills. Like I really do. So anytime anybody says anything about anything political that's going on or something, I'm like, well, did you read the bill? Well, no, I didn't read that. How do you find that? It's there. I read it. Do you want to talk? Not the point. I had a ton of fun looking into all of this. I had a ton of fun contacting all of these agencies and getting information from the horse's mouth, as it were. And I am looking forward to doing this with you today. Another weird thing about this format is that I am not going to actually be making soap while I do the talky talk thing. You're going to be seeing a lot of my face. And for today, normally I'm not like a super self-conscious person. You know, I don't care. What you see is what you see. I'm sick today and I feel pretty weird that I'm having. So just, keep that in mind and, be kind. But what I'm going to be doing is you're going to be seeing my face, but we're also going to be going to the interwebs. I'm going to be doing a lot of screen sharing as we talk about the things that are important in determining what your product actually is. I'm going to try to keep it specifically to soap, but so many soap makers also make other things like lotions, like face oils, like beard oils, etc., 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 that I might end up kind of picking a little bit of that up and talking about that too. Again, we're going to try to be concise here, and I'm going to try to keep it reasonably short. So, again, it's kind of a weird day, but roll with me. We're going to have a good time for sure. So one of the first things that you're going to do in your business, if you decide to start a soap business, right, and take it from hobby to, well, I want to build a business, is you start thinking about, what do you want your packaging to look like? And that literally is the first thing you start thinking about. And really what we should all be thinking about is, what does my packaging have to say on it? Which is pretty important. For labeling, Marie Gale did a book called Soap and Cosmetic Labeling. And Marie Gale has been in the business for a very long time. She worked with the guild for a while. I think she was a president. She lives up here in the Pacific Northwest. She doesn't have a specific background in things like, the law or bill writing or, anything like that. It's just she's a soap maker, and she made sense of all of this and put it into a book. And that's great. That's great. The problem is too many people will A, have not read that book, or 2, misread that book, or C, there's inaccurate information in that book. Not a lot, but there is. And so we're going to talk about, just again, taking it down before we go to labeling, because in order to determine what kind of label you need, you have to determine what your product actually is, right? That makes sense. And so, we're going to go to the FDA first. And I'm sure if you've done the Google search or whatever, like a Brambleberry post from Soap Queen many years ago, likely pops up in your search. And it's talking about, is it a soap, is it cosmetic, is it both? And she links to the FDA page talking literally about that. So we're going to probably not do that one, but we are going to go to an FAQ on soap first on the FDA.gov. And it says here, it's talking about, all the questions on how soap is regulated. And then the section of how are traditional soaps and synthetic detergents different? And in this section, the FDA goes on to explain that what an ordinary soap is. So this is the definition of a soap, right? It's combining fats or oils, fatty acids, with an alkali, like lye. Then this website goes on to say that very, very few soaps on the market are considered true soaps these days. And I guess technically speaking, that's true because Ivory and Dove are a much bigger business model than like small business, artisan, handcrafted soap makers. But the point is, literally this thing that we do right here where we put our coconut oil and our olive oil and our lye and our things and it becomes soap, be it hot process, cold process, doesn't matter. That's soap. And then this particular question or this particular section goes on to explain that, if the soap is made right, no lye exists in the remaining product. So as we know it, the way that we traditionally make soap, the way that most of us make soap, that for the most part is considered a soap, okay? Now, the regulatory definition of soap. So the actual regulations in the FDA, it has to meet 3 conditions, okay? What it's made of. The alkali salts of fatty acids. Okay. What ingredients cause its cleaning action? The alkali salts of fatty acids. How it's intended to be used. For cleansing. Like that's it. So in order for it to be considered a soap, that means oils plus lye solution equals soap. And it's meant to cleanse. And that's it. Period. End of. So it's soap. And then if your product meets those definitions, then what? Well, it's regulated by the CPSC, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, not the FDA. Cool. So that's great. And the CPSC is where we need to be looking at when it comes to labeling. And again, I am not talking about labeling today. I wanted to, but this is important as well. So going back to the FDA, if it's a soap, the FDA has none things to do with you whatsoever. Okay, fine. But what if you have added a detergent to your soap? What if you have included SLSA? How about SCI? How about any number of other things, artificial bubblers, cocoa betaine, any other number of things that make this no longer the true definition of soap? What then? Well, it's a cosmetic. And cosmetics are regulated by the FDA. Okay, so we need to pay attention to that. Now, what is a cosmetic? Again, we see if it's a cosmetic, it's regulated by the FDA. Quote, neither the product nor its ingredients need approval by the FDA except for any color additives it contains. End quote. Okay, think about that. If it's a cosmetic, it does not need approval from the FDA. So that means that every time that you have been talking to someone on any of the soap forums and they say, oh, well, you can't say it does anything other than cleanse, otherwise it's a cosmetic and you have to do all this extra stuff. You don't. You don't. You do not have to submit your product to the FDA. You do not have to submit your business to the FDA. There is no special licensure to claim anything with your soap that would make it a cosmetic claim. You do have to follow cosmetic labeling, however. And so that was one thing that it's always bothered me within the soap community. People go big hard with all this big hate on people on other soapers, usually large soapers, that say something like, this is moisturizing. They can't do that. A, you don't know their life. You don't know if they are registered as a cosmetic, whatever, with the FDA. 2, you don't need to. That is not a requirement for saying that your soap has some kind of properties outside of cleansing. It's just not. It's there in the bill. Continuing on with this, it does say, we would encourage you to participate in our voluntary cosmetic registration program. Great, cool, awesome, do that. Like as a responsible business owner, if you're going to be making cosmetics or you think you might be making cosmetics, you should do that. Just go ahead and register your business because it's better to have done so than to not. But what does that mean for what products can you think of that are not soap meant to cleanse? lotions, lotion bars, bath bombs. They're certainly not meant to cleanse. Beard oils, shampoo bars, conditioner bars. Now, I make a conditioner bar that actually does not have any synthetics in it, but for the most part, they super do. Syndet bars for shampoo. Well, that's a detergent. That's not a soap. It's now a cosmetic. Are you terrified? Don't be, because you haven't actually done anything wrong as long as you are making sure that you are following cosmetic labeling guidelines. Okay? So anytime that you hear somebody say, you can't say your soap does something, otherwise it's a cosmetic, and you're now in violation of the law. That is bullshit. Smile, nod, back away slowly. They don't have good information. Now, going further on to the whole drug thing, if it's a drug, it's regulated by the FDA. It must comply with the regulations called monographs for certain categories of non-prescription drugs or requirements for new drug approval. Now, at that point, you do need to register your product as a drug and your company and all of the things. We should not just speed past this one. Natural and organic, these are not terms that are regulated by the FDA. They're just not. So anybody can say it, and for that reason, it means literally nothing. So me personally, I like to stay away from those buzzwords. I really do. So, do what you want with your own business. That's completely fine. Then the FDA does go on to give some examples, right? Is a cosmetic a drug or both, or is it soap? Now, also, just for the record, again, like the whole labeling thing was, I know I keep saying it, going back to it, because this was supposed to be the point of the video today. The whole labeling thing, I will be deep diving into the specific bills and the acts and all of the things. But for right now, we're just using FDA.gov to help with definitions that I think will help you with your soapy journey. So in the article, is it a cosmetic, a drug, or both, or is it soap? It's important to note that soap is specifically excluded from this original bill, making all of these distinctions. Soap is specifically excluded. And that's why the CPSC, controls it. Okay, sorry, we have lots of kids and dogs and lots of activity today, so bear with me if you hear background noise. There's not a lot that I can do about other people living their lives. So, going to, again, the cosmetic, drug, or both thing. These are important links to click on. Again, I will be diving deeper into this, like how does the law define a cosmetic, a drug, all that jazz. Really deeper with all of these links, but we're just going to hit a couple of them today. This one is actually kind of important. How does the law define a cosmetic? Because we just defined a soap. Okay, so quote, the FD&C Act defines cosmetics by their intended use as articles intended to be rubbed, poured, sprinkled, or sprayed on, introduced into, or otherwise applied to the human body for cleansing, beautifying, promoting attractiveness, or altering the appearance. End quote. Actually, we're going to keep quoting. Quote, among the products included in this definition are skin moisturizers, perfumes, lipsticks, fingernail polishes, eye and facial makeup preparations, cleansing shampoos, permanent waves, hair colors, and deodorants, as well as any substance intended for use as a component of a cosmetic product. Did any of the products that you make fall on that list? Maybe you don't make lipsticks, but do you make lip balm? How about shampoo, conditioner, deodorant? All things that I have made on the channel for you. Cosmetics, okay? Basically anything that is a leave-on product is really going to be considered a cosmetic of some sort. Because you can't make a face oil, for example, and not say, oh, well, the jojoba and the argan and the hemp seed and the frankincense and myrrh, well, they don't do anything. We just want you to put this thing on your skin. These are all oils that are selected for a very specific purpose to alter the skin. Therefore, cosmetic. Sometimes drug. Have to be careful. Let's go to the drug part. The FD&C Act defines drugs, in part by their intended use, as articles intended for use in the diagnosis, cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of disease. Now, this is where I would caution everyone. Don't ever say that any of your things cure acne or eczema or, cancer. Just don't do that. Those are drugs, and actually that process is much more stringent than what any small business soap maker is ever going to be able to actually do when it comes to the FDA. So you can say that your product does thus, but you cannot make claims that says it treats or fixes or alleviates or otherwise renders inert some sort of physical ailment, some sort of ailment within the body, right? Keep that in mind. Now, they actually do go on to give some examples. And since they are going on to give some examples, we're going to talk about them. So I like this, that how can a product be both a cosmetic and a drug? Okay. That's actually a good question, because in a lot of cases it can be both. And so let's see. 2 intended uses, right? So here we go. Shampoo. It's a cosmetic because it's meant to cleanse the hair. Anti-dandruff would be a drug. Anti-dandruff shampoo would be a drug because the purported claims are it gets rid of your dandruff. So can you put oils into your products, your shampoo bars, that help with dandruff? You bet. You bet you can. Can you say that it's going to cure it? No. Not if you don't want to fall into the drug category, for sure. And so obviously the other things like fluoride and all that jazz, antiperspirants, that's a big one for sure. Cosmeceuticals, that's not a thing. That is not a term. Next. I mean, it is a term, but the FDA has not weighed in on that. They will eventually, I'm sure, but as it stands today, not. How do we establish a product's intended use? Now, that's actually a good question. How do we know? How do we know that we stay within bounds and we can say, that it cleans and it moisturizes, but it doesn't cure eczema? That's how we know. We don't take it that step farther. It is a drug if the intended use is to treat or prevent disease or otherwise affect the structure of or functions of the human body. Okay. Here are some examples. Restore hair growth, reduce cellulite, treat varicose veins, or increase or decrease the production of melanin in the skin or regenerate cells. So this is important. We will be doing a video very soon talking about the things you can and cannot say on a website in relation to this as well. And these sorts of things are important because, in fact, there are products, leave-on products, oils that you could put into lotions or face oils or whatever that do have, regeneration of cells, things, boost collagen, all the jazz. You can't say that your actual product does that, though. You can talk about, that's for a different video. Okay, so customer perception, that's a very interesting thing. That's very arbitrary and kind of a difficult one to even quantifiably measure. Interestingly, I really did want to focus on and point out this, okay? This principle also holds true for essential oils. Okay. So, for all of the people out there that are like big into aromatherapy, hey, aromatherapy is cool as shit. All the people out there that are saying, this oil, this essential oil does this, and this one does that. You're making a drug claim. Like that's the end of that. You are making a drug claim. If you put CBD into your bath bombs and say that it heals arthritis, treats arthritis, alleviates arthritis, well, now you're making a drug claim. And the FDA will not look favorably on that. But for the rest of it, cleansing and moisturizing and all that jazz, relaxing, I guess that's a mental state. It's not going to a physical. I don't know. I'll have to get back to that one. But yeah, if you are making any sort of, it's a pain reliever, it's a muscle reliever, it's a spasm reliever, you're making a drug claim. Steer away from that. Soap's fine. Cosmetic's fine. As long as they're labeled appropriately. Drug? No. There is a fine line. Okay, so now how are the approval requirements different between cosmetics and drugs? Okay, so cosmetic products and ingredients do not require FDA approval before they go on the market. Now, it does talk about the colorants that you are using for your products. Every reputable company that is selling colorants for your products, they have data pages, they have MSDS, they have data. It's been approved by the FDA. Granted, that's not true of everything. So I've said it before, like, don't just go randomly get your micas off of Amazon, because you don't know what you're getting. You don't know how it's going to impact your soap. And also you don't know, more importantly, if it's approved by the FDA. But for the most part, soap makers that are buying from reputable actual fragrance companies and color companies, even though fragrance is not listed in this, all of these processes have been completed, and you can check with the company itself to get that information if you're uncertain. So you don't do that. Cosmetics require no FDA approval. Drugs, however, must generally either receive pre-market approval by the FDA or conform to a monograph for a particular drug category. Now, these monographs, I've actually looked into them. And again, this is a different video entirely. Talking about drugs, I don't even know that that's a worthwhile thing to do on this channel that's about soap. But, if you're interested, I learned a lot of cool information. So we could do. But these monographs are actually so stringent. And so I don't know a soap maker alive that's willing to go through that. And the cost of all of it is just insane to register a product as a drug. So they are governed differently. They are seen as different because they're different. So let's go down here to how are labeling requirements different. A cosmetic product must be labeling according to cosmetic labeling regulations. Okay, and again, that's a whole last video in and of itself. But now let's go further down. For drugs, it has to be labeled according to OTC drug regulations, and that is a big one. That is a big one. The cosmetics one is actually not that bad, and it looks a lot like the FTC or the FPLA. Either way, the drug one is a big one. It's wild. And so then let's go down to what if it's soap? Soap is a category that needs special explanation. Okay, so every actual honest-to-God soap, it's made from oils in your lye solution, and it cleanses. It's specifically exempt, and the FDA has no governance over it. It's really rehashing at this point everything that was said in the other section. So this is interesting, just to double down on what I said earlier about if you add a detergent, it's no longer a soap. It's a cosmetic. They're doubling down at this point. They are explaining that. So if a product consists of detergents or primarily of alkali salts of fatty acid and is intended not only for cleansing but for other cosmetic uses, well, then it's a cosmetic. If a product consists of detergents or alkali salts of fatty acids and is intended not only for cleansing but also to cure, treat, or prevent disease, it's a drug. Or maybe a drug and a cosmetic. So what does this tell us? We're looking through all of these definitions. What do we get from this? First thing that we should get is that the different governing agencies look at products based on their intended use. If soap is meant to clean, for the most part, nobody pays attention to it. If it's actually honest to God soap. That is not me saying that you should not pay attention to proper labeling and, you should be very, very responsible in your recipe formulation and the way. I am not saying that means you don't do any of that, because that's not the case. But if it's soap, kind of nobody pays attention to it. If it's a cosmetic, it gets paid attention to-ish, but not the way a drug gets paid attention to. So we have 3 separate categories, and you could mistakenly end up turning your product into a drug by just taking it one step too far, right? So let's say you have a shampoo. Cool. If it just cleanses the hair, I guess it's still considered a soap. If it moisturizes the hair or locks in moisture, it's now a cosmetic. If that neem oil that you put into that shampoo bar is meant to treat dandruff, well, now it's a drug. You need to pay attention to the definitions so you know how to talk about your products as well as how to formulate your recipes. Because if you don't want to mess with the cosmetic thing across the board and you want to kind of stay in the wild, wild west of the soap world, you need to make sure that you can't put a detergent into it. There is a structure, there is a form. And so knowing the definitions first and foremost, I think, is the most important thing that we can do. And then once you know those definitions, you can build your business around them, help with your descriptions on your websites, and when you're talking to people organically at a market or in your shop or whatever. But 2, make sure that you're in compliance with the law. And C, it will help you determine how you actually have to label your products. So I've said the labeling thing so many times that that's what we're doing next. This is what I set out to do originally, was talk about labeling, because there's a lot of confusion and misconception, and I wanted to get sort of something kind of easy out there for you to reference when you're confused. But in order to do that, we had to go back to the beginning. We had to do the defining of actual soap, cosmetic, drug, to help everyone sort of figure out where they fall in all of these and whether or not they're doing something illegal. For the most part, you're probably not. But if after all of this you find that you have been, go change your copy. Go change your formulations. Maybe reach out to the FDA and say, I've been doing this. Now I'm confused. I'm concerned. What do I do to fix it? For the next thing, as I said, we will be talking about labeling and all of that jazz. But if you have any questions between now and then, absolutely send them through. Comment below. We can chit chat about anything that you might have questions on. It's a very fascinating subject and something that I enjoy just discussing in general, if only to eliminate some of the white noise surrounding it. Because this, like in so many areas of the soap world, there's a lot of white noise. And we don't like white noise. We don't have time for any of that. So there's that. That was today's video. And I hope you guys learned some cool information. I hope you found it as fascinating and interesting as I tend to do with all of this. And, if so, cool. If you would like to be notified when I do the labeling one, or literally just what tomorrow's video is, because we do this every day, subscribe. That's awesome. For those of you who are subscribed, hey Sudzers, comment below. Talk to me about this. Let me know what you think about all of this. And I'm sorry that I'm sick and I look super stern right now. It's not because I'm stern. I'm just sick and trying to breathe. So I'm sorry. But yeah, I really appreciate all of you for having joined me for another round of 365 days of soap. Again, comment below. Let's have some conversations. I am out of here for today. I'm going to go lay down with some tea. But I will see you guys all again tomorrow for another round of soapy fun. Bye.